Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Joshua Bridwell Show. This is the podcast where I talk about your personal, professional, and spiritual growth, and where we talk about your stories to help you go from stuck to growth. I am your host, Joshua Bridwell, and I'm super excited that you're here with me today because we're going to be diving into a topic that hits home for a lot of people. This is especially something that I have experienced in my own growth journey. And in some ways, I still experience this. But what I'm going to be sharing with you today has helped me to navigate it in a really healthy way. And I'm talking about what to do when you're feeling like you're not growing at work. Have you ever felt like you're not growing at work? This could feel really frustrating. It could lead to burnout. It could feel like you're just going through the motions. And deep down, you might feel like you are built for more than what you're doing right now. If you've ever found yourself questioning whether you are on the right path and wonder why you're not growing, you are not alone. In fact, a study done by Glassdoor last year found that 65% of people feel like they are not growing at work. And I personally know about feeling stagnant. In fact, it's one of the 4 stages of stuck. And I need to preface this. When people feel like they're not growing at work, they often think that the grass is going to be greener somewhere else. So they say, okay, I'm done growing here. I'm going to leave, go to another company. And there are legitimate reasons that somebody should leave a company. There are. But just because you're feeling stuck, you feel like you're not growing, is not a reason that you should bolt for the door. If you are having right conversations and if you are doing the things that we're going to talk about in this episode and you still feel like you're not growing, then okay, let's start looking at the door as an option. It's also important for you to know that if you do feel stuck at work, there's nothing wrong with you. You haven't done anything wrong. You haven't failed in any kind of way. It's actually something that is a really common thing for people to feel, for people to experience. And that's especially true in the busy culture today where we live in a fast-paced world and we're constantly being told that we need to achieve more, we need to be doing more, we need to be hustling harder. When you're stuck, it can sometimes feel like you are on autopilot. Maybe the work that you're doing feels repetitive, or maybe you're having the same conversation with the same leaders over and over and over again. Maybe it feels like you're not being challenged. You might even ask yourself the question of, is this it? Is this all that I am meant to do? If you ask yourself those questions, then this episode is definitely for you. And let me tell you, this is a really tough place to be. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But here's the thing. The feeling of being built for more is actually a really healthy sign. It's a signal that it's time for us to take a step back, for us to reflect on where we are, and for us to make some changes somewhere. And when I have felt stuck in my own career, I've learned that it doesn't mean necessarily that it is a dead end. For me, it's been a turning point. I have had to work to feel my own growth. And for me, I found that it's an opportunity for me to go deeper and to figure out what's missing, and then for me to start building a path, often with the help of other people, on what it's like to move forward. And for me, what has helped is for me to recognize that it has often been that I wasn't having the right conversations with the right people in order to grow. And that is a really important thing for us to do, is to have the right conversations with the right people. But there are other root causes that we need to be aware of, because before we can fix anything, we have to understand what's really going on. So let's just take a moment. Let's reflect. I want you to take this next 30 seconds really seriously because I'm going to ask you a few questions. First of all, what are your goals? Because sometimes when we feel stuck, it's because we don't have a clear direction that we're working towards. And so maybe you've been really busy and you haven't paused for a moment to think about where it is that you actually want to go. If you're interested in upward movement, into what position, who do you need to connect with? And we're going to talk about connections here in just a little bit. But first, what are your goals? If you don't have any, okay, there is a really important route that we need to focus on there. Second, what skills or experiences might you be missing? This one's really tricky and can be really vulnerable because it requires you to have humility. Ask yourself, are there areas where you need to grow or improve to reach that next level? And third, what's the environment like where you work? Is it a place that is encouraging growth, or is it a company where they're so focused on the numbers that they forget the people, and you can feel like you're stuck in a box? People don't care about your personal development. To you, they're just a number or a name on a piece of paper. If that's the place where you work, where they are 90% profit over people, I would encourage you to start looking elsewhere. And then this is another really big thing that people don't often take a step back to think about. And do you feel like your work, not your job title, not the company, but the work that you are doing, do you feel that it has a purpose and a meaning? If you're somebody that is having a hard time finding purpose in what it is that you're doing, there is a book that I recommend. This is not a paid sponsorship in any capacity. It's just something that has helped me in my own journey, but it's called From Paycheck to Purpose: The Clear Path to Doing Work You Love by Ken Coleman. I highly recommend, if you're struggling finding purpose in what it is that you're doing, to go check that out. Something that can also make us feel like we are stuck where we are, as weird as it sounds, is when we are looking so far ahead, we forget about the work that we're doing right now. I have been taught that if you are going to get promoted, if you're going to launch up, level up within a company, you need to own and work the ground that you're in very well. So keep that in mind. For me, one of the biggest turning points in growing in my place of work was realizing that I was not asking for what it is that I needed. I wasn't having the right conversations. I made some dumb assumptions that my boss and my team knew exactly what it was that I wanted as far as growth, but I hadn't actually communicated it. When you make that assumption, you're setting yourself up to fail. And you can often feel uncared for because, oh, well, like, why doesn't my team just give me what it is that I'm needing? Well, because you haven't asked for it. You need to ask and communicate where you want to go. Because more often than not, the issue is not a lack of opportunity, it's a lack of clarity or communication. And this is what I was talking about earlier in this episode, where I said, if you are not growing within your company, don't just bolt for the door. You need to be having the conversations. You need to be leaning in with clarity, because a lot of times it's not a lack of opportunity. Is it sometimes? Sure. But sometimes the issue is not opportunities. So once you've identified the root cause of your lack of growth. It's time for you to take action. And what does that look like? Well, it could be developing further skills. So, is there a specific skill, or is there a certification or a degree that could open doors for you? If the answer is yes, you need to lean into that. You need to invest in that. There are some industries, for example, I've got a friend who is a real estate broker, and he told me that before you can become a real estate broker, you need to have a bachelor's degree. It doesn't have to be a bachelor's degree related to real estate, but having a bachelor's degree, period, opens up the opportunity for you to then become a broker. There are a whole bunch of different resources out there, from online courses to books. There's a whole bunch here on YouTube, or if you're listening to me on your favorite podcast episode, you can go to YouTube. You can find all sorts of different tutorials about growth. Think about what would make you more confident and capable within your role. And don't forget the soft skills, because when we are focusing on growth, we think, okay, I need to learn the hard skills of this job. I need to learn our softwares and our systems. And sure, that's really important, but don't forget about the soft skills along the way. You need to focus on leadership, communication, emotional intelligence. These are things that really set people apart. Hard skills can be taught much easier than soft skills can. Know that. It's also really important for you to build your network, and I cannot emphasize this enough. You've heard the phrases before of it's not what you know, it's who you know, and I think there's some truth to that. Your network is one of the most valuable assets that you have. I want you to reach out to colleagues. I want you to attend events. And don't be afraid to ask other people for advice or to find a mentor. I think there's a lot of humility in that. There's vulnerability. There's a lot of wisdom. And also, I need you to remember that when you network, when I attend networking events, this bugs me a lot because people do it wrong. They go and have conversations with the mentality of, okay, what can this person do for me? Networking is not just about finding opportunities. It's about building relationships. It's a two-way street. Building relationships and learning from other people. It's not just about what they can do for you, but how can you give and help them. Again, a network should be a two-way street. And if you are in a company that has multiple locations, maybe multiple branches, if you're in an interconnected company, you are in a really great spot, and people don't take advantage of this enough. You need to look outside of just your office for wisdom. So let's take a building and say you work with the same 10 people in this building all the time. If all you are doing is gaining wisdom from the people within your own building, then you're just becoming a combination of those 10 people. But if you reach out to somebody, say in building B, and learning from them, then you're adding stuff to your own building that wasn't there before. Lean into conversations. Have conversations with people in other roles. Have conversations with people that are in the same role that you're in. Ask them, hey, what is one way that you have grown this year? For somebody that is in this position or has this opportunity coming up, what would you do? Ask them to pour into you, have them ask questions, and really lean in to your network. And then you also need to take initiative. If you're feeling stuck, look for ways to grow. Hear me, I'll underline this make this your ringtone. I don't care. Your growth is nobody else's responsibility. Your growth is your responsibility. Can other people provide opportunities and help you and make it easier for you? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, your growth is your responsibility. So, what can this look like within a workplace? It could be volunteering for a new project, it could be proposing an idea, anything where you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. Even if it's something small, when you step outside of your comfort zone, when you intentionally lean into that growth, it shows that you are proactive, you're excited and eager to grow. And one thing that I have found is companies that are the most healthy when it comes to growth are the companies that say, "Hey, I don't care." Well, maybe not. I don't care, but companies that say, "Hey, if you're here for a long time, great. But if you're not here for a long time, how can we prepare you for where you want to go?" That's a really healthy mentality for companies to have, and they're often more likely to provide feedback. If feedback is not being provided or not as much as you would like, then ask for feedback. This one again can feel really vulnerable, but it's really important. You need to sit down with your leaders or trusted colleague and just ask for honest feedback. This is not meant to be a roast or a lashing of any kind. In fact, it shouldn't be. You need to have this in two different pieces. You need to have this in a celebration component where you ask for what you're doing really well. And then you need to have a component where you feel challenged, which means what could you do to improve? Once you have the celebration and you have the challenge, then you need to use that as a roadmap for growth. Anytime that you engage in feedback conversations, I highly encourage you to write it down, whether that's in the notes in your phone, whether you're like me and you have a physical notebook for growth and feedback. You need to be able to write it down in some capacity, go back, reference that, and use that because it's going to be a roadmap for your growth. Now, at the beginning, I did say sometimes there are legitimate reasons to leave a company. Now it's time to talk about when you know it's time to move on. This can be a really tough but necessary thing for us to lean into. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, the environment that you're in is not meant for you and your growth. It could be that they are trying to get you to grow against your moral compass. And if you are within a company that does that or isn't in line with your growth, first of all, I need you to know that it doesn't mean that you have failed by putting yourself in that environment. It might mean that you have outgrown the space, or whenever you entered the space, you didn't know that that's what it was about. If you are in a toxic workplace, or if there aren't any opportunities for you to move up or to move laterally, it might be time for you to start looking at other options. During this time, I encourage you to update your resume, connect with the network that you've built, and look for roles that do align with your values and the goals that you have for yourself. Or in some cases, whatever certifications that you receive or degrees that you receive. But here's the thing. Don't wait until you are completely burned out to make a change. You need to go somewhere where you feel a sense of purpose. You need to be proactive. Your growth and your well-being are worth the effort. There's one more thing that I want to talk about. And I want to talk to you about your mindset, because no matter where you are in your career, a growth mindset is going to carry you to anywhere you want to go, whether that's personally, whether that's professionally, whether that's spiritually. A growth mindset's going to carry you forward. It means staying curious. It means staying humble. It means being willing to learn. And it also means that you view challenges as opportunities. I want to share something really personal with you here. I applied for a position years ago, and I was told that it was a position that you were meant to stay in for a year, and then you were supposed to move upward. I know now that it was misrepresented, but after a year, I applied for this position, and I didn't get it. And I ended up applying for this position 5 different times, and I was told no every time. That got really discouraging. You can imagine that I felt really stuck where I was, and a lot of people would leave the company at that point, and I was one of them. I did. And then I went and I started working at a job where I was miserable, to the point where I was breaking down. I was breaking down in the hallway. It was just not a good place for me to be. And so I spent time in prayer about it. And I opened up my phone, and turns out that I went to LinkedIn. The very first post on LinkedIn was they were looking for that position that I was told no so many times. And ended up having a lot of really great conversations, and eventually stepped into that role. But there have been times when I have felt completely stuck. But looking back on those moments, there were times when I learned a lot about myself, about what kind of companies I could work for, what values I look for within a company. And I did something that was uncomfortable. I took a risk. The risk didn't pan out for me, because the company that I went and worked for, the company itself was not a bad company. I was not meant for the work. Growth is not something that is easy. It takes learning a lot about yourself. It takes having intentional conversations about where it is that you want to go. Growth isn't always easy, but it is always worth it. So if you're feeling stuck at work, I really hope that this episode has given you some clarity, some encouragement, as well as just community in knowing that this is not something that you are on an island all by yourself. You're not alone, and you have the power to reignite your growth. I want you to lean into asking for feedback. I want you to develop your skills. I want you to build your network. I want you to take initiative. And I need you to identify your root. Is that, feeling purpose? Is that your goals? Or what are your goals? What skills or experiences might you be missing? And what's the environment like where you are? I really hope that this episode has been really helpful for you. I've put a lot of time and effort trying to prepare this, and using my own journey as a blueprint for you. And whether through, like I said, developing skills, building relationships, or sometimes maybe even making a bold move into a new role, the next step is yours to take, whatever that looks like. If this episode is something that has resonated with you, I would really love for you to share it with a friend or a colleague who might be feeling stuck at work. And if you haven't already, I want you to make sure to subscribe to this channel for more conversations about personal, professional, and spiritual growth. If this episode wasn't as in-depth as you needed for your own situation, I want you to know that you can always call 940-247-2477 and we can talk through your individual situation. You can also send an email to thejoshuabridwellshow@gmail.com. And we've also created a Facebook group where you can go, you can get encouragement, you can get wisdom from the community. So thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'm really grateful for your listenership, your viewership, and this has been another episode of the Joshua Bridwell Show. Thanks for tuning in. Tune in next time. Let's grow.